chapter 44. Goodbye. The very next day, Uncle Weldon picks me up from school as usual. He drives me home as usual. When we reach our house, I cross the planks as usual, and I see Rain watching me from a window. What is not usual is that Uncle Weldon is still sitting in the truck. He's waiting for Rain and me. I put my school things inside, and then I clip Rain's leash to her collar and walk her around the yard for a while. She pees and poops and sniffs at her favorite things: the stump, the bottom porch step, a particular spot near the garage door. Uncle Weldon watches us from the truck. My father is not at home. He's probably at the Luck of the Irish, but I can tell that he was working on the new bridge this morning. I think my father doesn't want to say goodbye to Rain. I lead Rain to the truck. She sits between Uncle Weldon and me as we drive along. She looks out the window seriously. The other day, Mrs. Liebler told me to try to see things from someone else's perspective. Put yourself in that person's place, Rose, she said. What do you think she's feeling? What do you think she's thinking? I'm not sure what Rain is thinking or feeling now, but she looks like she's watching the road for people who are making driving mistakes. Uncle Weldon and Rain and I ride to Happy Tales. We don't say much. Our space in the truck is very quiet. I stroke the white toes on Rain's front feet. Her toes are so soft as just little willows. Uncle Weldon turns onto the drive to Happy Tales. He parks the truck and then he looks at me for a long time. Are you all right, Rose? He asks. I stare out the window and remember my father whacking Rain on the back and fishing for us under the table. I think the Hendersons will take good care of her, I reply. I help Rain out of the truck and lead her along the walk to the door of Happy Tales. Rain starts to shake, which makes me believe that she remembers Happy Tales and that she isn't happy to be back here. Beyond that, I don't know what she's feeling. Mrs. Capperell is waiting for Uncle Weldon and Rain and me at the door. She puts her arm around my shoulder. You're making 4 people very happy, Rose, she says. What you're doing is honorable and brave. Everyone calls me brave. Is this what bravery feels like? Come into my office, Mrs. Capperell continues. The Hendersons are there. I look up at my uncle and he offers me a smile. And then he puts his hand on my back and we follow Mrs. Capperell through a doorway. Sitting on chairs in the small office are a man, a woman, a girl who is about my age, and a boy who is probably the prime number age of 7. They're sitting silently. But when they see Rain, they all jump to their feet. And then the girl and boy slide onto their knees and throw their arms around Rain. Olivia! The girl cries. The boy doesn't say anything. He buries his face in Rain's fur. The woman starts to cry. So I don't look at her anymore. I watch Rain. She sat quietly at first, but now she's standing up and wiggling, not shaking, wiggling like every inch of her. She licks the boy's face and then the girl's face. She leaps up against the man's legs. The woman kneels down and Rain puts her paws on her shoulders. She whines in her happy way and then she jumps down and dances back and forth, sticking her snout in the Hendersons' hands. This is happy Rain, and these are happy people, I think. I remember what their house looked like. I try to think about things from the boys' and the girls' perspectives. I decide that they must have been as sad to lose Rain as I was, and that they must feel as happy now as I did on the day that Uncle Weldon and I first came to Happy Tales. I think that they still don't have their home, but now they have their dog back. When Rain stops dancing around and the room grows quieter, Mrs. Capperell brings out some papers for Mr. and Mrs. Henderson. They sign them, and then for a moment, everyone stands still looking at one another. I drop my eyes to Rain. Mrs. Barlow's gonna cry. Just want to warn you. Mrs. Henderson crosses the little room and puts her arms around me. I hold very still, my arms at my sides while she hugs me. Thank you, Rose, she says. Yes, thank you, says her husband. He looks like maybe he's going to hug me too, but he changes his mind and smiles at me instead. Thank you, says the girl and the boy, whose names I now know are Jean and Toby. I think for a moment that I say, "You're welcome," and I stare at each one of the Hendersons. Uncle Weldon clears his throat. "Well," he says, "I should get you home, Rose." He turns to the Hendersons. "Would it be possible for Rose to have a few minutes alone with Rain?" "Of course," says Mr. Henderson, and everyone leaves the room except for Rain and me. Miss Barlow has 2 dogs, so that's why this makes me sad, because I couldn't imagine having a dog for a whole year and loving them and then having to give them back to their owner. So I don't know if you have any pets that you can connect with Rose in this part of the book, but that's why it makes me sad. Rain is sitting on her haunches in the middle of the floor. She's still very excited. And when I sit down next to her, she jumps to her feet and puts her face against mine, breathing hard. "That's your family," I say finally. "You're going to go home with them." Rain continues to gaze at me. I wrap my arms around her and feel her soft fur against my cheek. "I love you," I tell her. Rain leans into me, and we sit that way until I hear a knock on the door. "Rose," calls Uncle Weldon. "We need to leave now. So do the Hendersons. Have you said goodbye?" "Yes." I stand up and lead Rain through the door. She sees the Hendersons and runs to them. They call goodbye and say thank you to me several more times. I stand at the window in happy tails and watch Rain climb into the Hendersons' car. And then I watch the car pull out of the lot and turn onto the drive. I can see Rain's head in the window, her long, proud snout, and her pink nose that is the exact color of an eraser. Jean Henderson leans over and whispers in Rain's ear, and Rain tilts her head to the side. The car turns a corner, and Rain disappears.